What's up guys, it's Drac, and I'm making this video because I've been asked to make this video, and apparently this has been very helpful for people in the past when they're trying to decide whether or not to buy the new hotness. They like these versus videos where I kind of ad nauseum explain my logic between whether or not you should buy the new blaster and why, and what the other alternatives and options are, and kind of the costs involved in bringing them up to speed. I've done it before with a couple of other blasters, and I've gotten really positive feedback from it, so if you don't like this kind of video, I'm terribly sorry. You are under no obligation to watch it, but if this does help you kind of work through the thought process, or if you just like to have an industry professional opinion on kind of the differences in terms of like someone who also actually goes out and competes with these things and plays with them frequently, then like that's what this is. So disclosures aside, let's talk about the versus video between the new Nemesis, the Khaos from last year, and then the Zeus, which at this point seems old, but frankly is still very new tech. Like Rivals is still a relatively new line and doing very well. I'm thrilled that we get new releases every year, and I think that it's not out of bounds to say that the Flywheel systems and the Springer systems have progressively gotten better with each subsequent year. Now, you can debate that because in one theory, like, yes, this is of course a modified Hurricane, but the Zeus originally had magazines that were cross-compatible with the Springer variety and then with the second Springer. So like the magazine system was good and it was cross-compatible, which was very cool and a benefit. So you could say that that's a benefit, and it kind of stinks that we've gotten proprietary magazine that took a very long time to come to market as a secondary purchasable thing, and then proprietary, I've had people want me to call this a hopazine. I like that. I also have had people tell me that I should call it a fang hopper on account of the fact that my signature is mysteriously built into it. Hashtag GWonderWhy. Anyway, these are proprietary systems. They don't work with anything else, and so you had to, if you wanted one of these earlier, you had to buy a separate Khaos to get the magazine, and then you had an extra Khaos and nothing to really do with it. Now, you should be able to purchase these separately mid-March, which will be really cool. They will be available on Amazon, but I've heard absolutely nothing about selling the Fang Hoppers at any point in the future, so I will inquire about that at Toy Fair, but I don't know. So I think it's safe to say, bottom line, is that they have gotten better as time has gone on, because we had a 12-round semi-auto, followed by a 40-round full auto, followed by a 100-round full auto. So now that we've talked about how they've kind of gotten better, let's talk about how they've stayed exactly the same. Because they've stayed exactly the same. The primary difference is that we added the conveyor belt pusher for full auto, but we're still using the same motors and the same flywheel systems to shoot the same ammo with the same voltage. So like, these are fundamentally the same firing mechanisms, and the big change each year has been in capacity. So as opposed to like going from say in-strike to elite where things got exponentially better, or as opposed to like changing the firing mode up, these have not gotten better. Like, they still shoot rival rounds, flywheel style, 50 to 60 feet with a lot of initial velocity, a reasonable amount of accuracy, and then a ton of ammo float. So you have to decide, like, if each step is worth the monetary hop that it is. Now, you could talk about how these were very expensive when they all released, but right now, as of the making of this video, which is late January-ish 2017, this is what they cost. So you can buy a Khaos for about $50 to $55, depending upon where you get it. You can buy a Zeus for, you can thrift these now, which is insane, but you can also get them, I think, at retail for about $30 to $40, and they come with the magazine, and then you can find the other magazines just as easily. They have refill packs, etc. And then this is costing $100 MSRP and has not officially hit the market yet. So that's kind of a difference. This costs almost twice as much as a Khaos, which means that you have to keep in mind that you could have two Khaoses for the price of a Nemesis. But the Nemesis holds twice as much in terms of capacity as the Khaos, so it's really like debatable as to whether or not you're paying for capacity so much as you're paying for convenience of not having to reload as often, or for the ability to continually top off your magazine without dropping it out and having an awkward flap on the top. So in terms of ergonomics, they're also all pretty similar. The Zeus is by far the most compact. That's obvious just looking at them. Like, this is the Zeus interposed on these guys, and it's a full 6 inches or so is shorter, and then a little bit thinner, and definitely way thinner up at the front. And if you turn it into various versions of the Hurricane, you can cut it down even smaller, as long as you're willing to run these tubes shorter and chop off some of the back end. It also ran on less batteries. So the Zeus is the cheapest one to run, but to make it competitive with things that fire in full auto, you essentially have to turn it into a Hurricane, which means that you have to use this this pusher fan or some other system of pushing frequently through a tube-style system. So to get it up to this capacity, you're looking at spending, if you do it all yourself, all from scratch, you're still going to spend about $30, $35 making it. That might be generous. I'll let my friends correct me on that if they must. But to buy the kit, which is definitely the best way to do this, is to go and hit up Out of Darts and just buy the Hurricane kit. I think he sells the kits for $80 or $90 right now. Again, if I'm wrong, I'm sorry, but I'm pretty sure that's what they cost. So you're looking at $20 to $30 for the Zeus, plus $80 for the kit, puts you at right around the price of the Nemesis. But I think that even Adam will agree that this is a less efficient system than a Nemesis overall, just because it is. The pusher moves balls very slowly when it's full and then very quickly when it's empty. So you have variable rate of fire as long as you're not doing something like a stepper up here with a switch like this. And there are ways to make it better, but then it gets more expensive. Now, it's a house, and I don't want to detriment just how awesome this mod is, but as soon as the Chaos came out, converted the Chaos, I called up some people that I know, and I got some extra magazines, and so I've been using the Chaos at SE&C Wars, and I even took it down to our Florida thing. I've been using it with 4 magazines to great effect, so 160 rounds of capacity, and having an absolute blast with it. I converted it over immediately. I modified it completely, so you can see this is my model that I felt like needed a foregrip. My friend Fuzzy Pete made my foregrip for me, and so that was really nice of him, and it normally runs off of a LiPo system here in the back. I have not yet modified the Nemesis. That is coming very, very soon, but the cost of modifying one of these guys, since you don't have to replace motors, you really only have to replace switches and wires, is actually quite low. It costs about $12 to do a full proper refitting of this, plus another like $10 for the battery, assuming you're already on LiPo, plus another $50 to $60 for the safe charger. So once you modify these to spec, they all kind of reach the next platform, but stock they all have very similar performance. Modified, they all have very similar performance. They just have different ergonomics and capacity. So I think that the Chaos is only better if you really, really like the magazine system, or if you're like me and you've already invested in getting a bunch of other magazines. I will tell you that I'm going to edit this out, but I'm probably not going to edit it out, just because this video takes a long time to make. So I think that the Chaos was great for the year that it was out, but as sad as it is, I think that the Nemesis is just better in almost every way. It's got a built-in foregrip area, so you don't have to worry about third-partying it, which is excellent because you can't, actually. It has way less tactical rail. Speaking of which, the tactical rail on the Nemesis is way less efficient. If you plan on switching entire, I guess, hopazines at a time, your only tactical rail on this blaster is actually built into that hopper, which is not ideal. Luckily, the cost of conversion is made cheaper by the fact that if you bought the battery pack, it does cross over, and the controls are functionally identical, and it just becomes slightly better. So I do like this the most. I think that this is the best purchase, but let's be realistic. Like, pragmatically, this is a very expensive purchase to get when it comes out new. It is a $100 toy, so if you've already invested in a Chaos, I think that it's important to remember that the Chaos is still just as good performance-wise. If you have an extra magazine, you're right there in terms of capacity in a lot of ways, and it's just as much fun. So, like, I would definitely not kick this to the curb for the sake of spending $100 on this. Like, I think that there's... You can go either way. This is better in my opinion, but I don't know if it's $100 worth of better, because that's the cost of conversion is buying the new thing. Plus, if you're going to modify it, it becomes closer to like $120, all said and done. So, I think that the Nemesis is great. I think that it definitely wins a heads-up versus, just because it is clearly like a third-generation design and the best design in my opinion so far. I think that if you really just want a Flywheel rival blaster, there's absolutely nothing wrong with just picking up a Zeus for $30 and having a ton of fun with it. the Zeus is great. It's still 12 rounds of semi-auto performance, which can be quite fast if you work that trigger, and reloading it really isn't that bad. My friend Avery at the SENC works through these 12-rounders like you wouldn't believe, and carries close to 200 rounds worth of capacity in those 12-round magazines. Now, the Chaos is an absolute blast, and I personally have a ton of fond memories at Wars just unloading 40-round clips at a time. I think that the Nemesis is going to be just as much fun, but I think that it really, like, the answers that which one is the best, the Nemesis is the best, but which one is the most fun really depends on your budget. Like, if you haven't bought into Rivals yet, I think now is the time. I don't think it's going to get much better than the Nemesis. I think that you should 100% pick up a Nemesis when it comes out, just save for that and do it. But I think that if you already have one of these other rival blasters, it may not be worth the cost of conversion, because the performance is so very, very similar that you can have just as much fun with a Chaos or a Zeus as you can with a Nemesis. And I think that for a Nemesis that gets a little too trigger happy and just runs through this hopper without continuously topping off, you have just as much of an advantage in terms of reloading as they would, especially since you've been conserving ammo differently during the game. So different schools of thought. I guess let me know what you think, but I think that they're all equally valid in terms of their performance, and I think that they're all equally valid in terms of their ergonomics, and I think that while the Zeus probably has the most potential when modified in terms of like how crazy you can get with the Hurricane, I think that it is one of the least consistent out of all the different feeding mechanisms, because while the conveyor belt can be wonky at times, it is consistent, if nothing else, just by design. So that's really only my opinion. The best part about these versus videos is always the comment section below. I've got a handful of people who post very descriptive, very well thought out, well educated comments, and I always read those. I always appreciate them. And then I have people who comment on those comments frequently, and we usually get a very good, very civil discussion going. As long as everybody's on Team Red, we have no problems and everything's all good, right guys? So thank you very much for watching. I hope this was helpful for you in terms of either getting rid of a little bit of buyer's remorse. I know that a lot of people were like, oh, the Nemesis is coming out, so the Chaos is garbage now. I don't think that that's the case at all. The Chaos is still sweet. And I hope that it also helps you if you're looking to break into Rivals finally. I think that the answer is here, and I think that it is worth the cost of entry, so to speak, for getting into it, because Rivals are sweet, like, in every way. And I know they are a different ammo type, but they are really, really a ton of fun, and they have a serious place at the SENC Wars, and I think that HVZ games are really starting to embrace them as well. So that's just my opinion. I can't wait for the comments. Thank you very much for watching. Much love. Nerf on, Drac out.